Previously on Dragon Ball Hakai, after the Celestial Mages attack in search of the 5 great primordial beasts and the war declaration made by the leader of the Mages, a new meeting among the gods is called to discuss the situation. What will be the next steps taken by the Celestial Guardians and the gods of destruction, and also what exactly happened? How did the situation come to this point? Find out now. Hakai. Chapter 27, War Council, Part 1. In the place of the supreme deity of the 12 universes, all the gods of destruction, gods of creation, the angels, all gathered. Also present were Paikon and Daishinken, the Zenos and their bodyguards. Speaking is Daishinken, who is summarizing the situation for everyone present at the meeting, explaining the final outcomes of the clash between them and the Celestial Mages. The High Priest snaps his fingers and a hologram is created in the center of the corridor, showing the figure of Brajin and her chimera. Daishinken says that this is Brajin, the Great Seal Mage, and she kidnapped Zeno, the all-knowing being living in Universe 7, Hellas, the Kaioshin, and the angel next to her gaze at the face. Perhaps the goddess who is fascinated by beauty may be wondering how such an ugly woman can exist. But well, who knows? Next, Daishinken talks about Lauder, the Great Seal Mage who tried to kidnap the 2 already released parts of Majin Buu's power. But Beerus stopped him. Daishinken also shows everyone the image of Lauder holding one of his magical seals in his hand. Then he speaks of Zorki, the Great Illusion Mage who led the primordial beast Kalimor out of Universe 11. Next is Tyra, the Great Warrior Mage who took the cocoon of the primordial beast called Hatch from Likir. And finally he speaks of Odisu, the Great Mage of Elements, who took the cocoon of the primordial beast called Hiru from Son Goku. And not less important, the High Priest reminds that they destroyed the Super Dragon Balls, showing the destruction of the orbs through his hologram. But after reporting so many negative moments, he gives the good news and says that not everything was defeated. The Celestial Guardians managed to recover Janemba's cocoon, a feat accomplished by Paikon. And they also have in their possession the cocoon with Majin Buu's original power, a task fulfilled by the Guardian called Endor. Also, as he had already mentioned, Beerus managed to prevent the already released power of Majin Buu from falling into the hands of the mages. At that moment, he shows Beerus preventing Lauder from taking Oob on Earth. Beerus smiles proudly at his own feat and throws it in the faces of his colleagues that despite always being the most criticized among them, he was the only god who performed his task well. This statement annoys Belmod and Likir and leaves Goku very frustrated. One thing they have in common is that all 3 failed to prevent the Celestial Mages from capturing the primordial beasts in their universes. Daishinken says that now that the complete report of the facts have been given, he thinks everyone should better understand the situation. So Mr. Paikon is there to clarify any doubts they may have. Paikon makes himself available to the gods, saying he will do his best to inform them in the best possible way. Iwan from Universe 1 is the first to ask, wanting to know how the Celestial Mages ended up freeing themselves since the Celestial Guardians kept them imprisoned for countless years. He wants to know why this happened only now. Jin from Universe 12 adds to his colleague's question, recalling that in their first meeting, Paikon mentioned that the Guardians were caught in a moment of weakness, and he wants to know what that means. Paikon says that for them to fully understand the situation, he must first explain how the sealing of the Celestial Mages happened. He recounts that many years ago, the Celestial Mages violently attacked the realm of Zeno, with the goal of obtaining the cocoons of the 5 great primordial beasts. The gods of that time united to try to stop the mages, but they had great difficulty because the mages were extremely hard to defeat, both due to their great raw power and their extremely challenging magical tricks. Seeing no other option, he, who was the god of destruction of Universe 7, managed to use an advanced sealing technique on them, and in exchange for all his life energy, he succeeded in sealing the mages. However, as they all should know, sealing techniques normally require a container, where the sealed entity remains contained. In this case, to imprison beings as powerful as the Celestial Mages, they used an extremely powerful magical container. This container is a box created by the power of the Super Dragon Balls. This box was called the Sealing Box, an extremely resistant magical container. Paikon explains that by using the Sealing Box, he managed to imprison the mages with his technique, and thus the realm of Zenos was rid of this great threat. After hearing this part of the history, Goku calls on Paikon to clarify a doubt. He asks why. Since they were using the Super Dragon Balls to defeat the mages, they didn't simply ask Super Shenron to make the mages disappear forever or something like that. If they had done that, things would have been much simpler. Paikon says that it wouldn't be possible, and Goku asks why not. since Super Shenron can do anything. Paikon says that it's true that Super Shenron can do anything, but he explains that there are rules for using the Super Dragon Balls. He says he won't go into too many details because that's not the focus of the meeting. But in summary, since the power of the Super Dragon Balls was used to seal Zarat, it is completely forbidden by Zalama, the creator of the Super Dragon Balls, for the orbs to be used for requests that directly involve beings from another realm. Goku is left with even more doubts and asks what Paikon means by that. The Master Guardian responds by explaining that, simply put, since Zarat was defeated, the Super Dragon Balls no longer have direct power over beings or locations from other realms. This means that Super Shenron can create, alter, or destroy anything that belongs to the realm of Zeno, but cannot directly affect anything belonging to another realm. Paikon explains that because of this rule, they could not use the Super Dragon Balls to directly seal the mages, kill them, or anything of the sort. So that's why they asked Super Shenron to create a powerful container that they knew would be able to seal the mages. Vados calls out Goku and promises to explain more to him later about how these rules involving the Super Dragon Balls work. But for now, they should let Mr. Paikon continue with what he was saying. Basically, this is Vados' polite way of telling Goku to shut up and stop asking things that have nothing to do with the subject of the meeting. But before continuing the chapter, I would like to ask you to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. Folks, your likes are very important because the more likes a video has, the more reach the platform gives to it. So when you leave a like, you'll be helping the video to be seen by more people, and that's very important for Dragon Ball Hakai. So if you like this story, please give it a like and support us. And if you're a fan of Dragon Ball Hakai but not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe now, as here you'll know absolutely everything about Dragon Ball Hakai. And if you're a big fan of Dragon Ball Hakai and want to help this story continue, please support us through our Patreon. Even with a small amount, you can help us keep producing the manga and also receive some exclusive benefits here on the channel. Thanks to the supporters, we've been able to continue with the manga, but the truth is, for a faster production of the story, we need more resources. So if you want to see the chapters published more frequently, please help us. Well, that's what I wanted to say. Sorry for interrupting the story, but these are very important announcements. Now let's continue with the chapter. After receiving this polite and discreet reprimand from Miss Vados, Goku agrees with her, and then Paikon continues the history by explaining that the sealing box fulfilled its role in containing the celestial mages. But the problem was that their power was so great that it kept the box under constant pressure. As time passed, the box was constantly losing power. He explains that when they made the request to Super Shenron, they did not imagine that the mages would exert so much pressure on the box, to the point of wearing it out. So they didn't ask for an object of infinite energy. But Goku has the solution for everything, right? So he gives a solution, saying it's easy. And all they need to do was ask Super Shenron to grant infinite energy to the sealing box. While Goku suggests this, Shin beside him becomes a little impatient. But once again, Paikon dismisses Goku's solution, saying unfortunately it wasn't possible. This saddens Goku, who complains about not being able to come up with a single solution. Then Paikon explains why, and says there are two reasons why Goku's suggested solution is not possible. The first reason is that once the celestial mages were already sealed inside the sealing box, any request they made involving the box would be something done directly against the mages, so Super Shenron wouldn't grant that wish. And the second reason is that after the celestial mages were sealed, the sealing box became a relic of the celestial guardians, and those who live in the celestial world don't belong to any of the realms. Just like a wish made to the Super Dragon Balls cannot affect them in any way, they also cannot use the orbs or directly benefit from them. Paikon concludes by saying that the orbs only work exclusively in the realm of Zeno and for the realm of Zeno. Goku asks what they did then if that's the case. Paikon says they, the Guardians, created a second magical object, the battery box. He explains that this is a special box energized by their power, which was inserted into the sealing box. When the battery box filled with power was inserted into the sealing box, it renewed its power and kept it functioning regularly for thousands of years. But unfortunately, there came a time when the battery box discharged, and when that happened, almost all the celestial guardians who were, by rule, very powerful gods gathered to recharge it. But this recharging process demanded a lot of power from those who participated and took days for them to fully recover. In other words, whenever the battery box was recharged, the celestial guardians became very weakened. Hellas observed that if there was an ideal moment to attack the Celestial Guardians, it was that moment, taking advantage of their weakness. Paikon agrees but says they took some precautions to mitigate this fragility. First, not all the Celestial Guardians participated in the ritual, and the goal was to have some of them retain their full power. And another security measure they took was that no one besides the Celestial Guardians themselves knew the day and time of the ritual. After these explanations, Quaitella can only conclude that the only way for the Celestial Guardians to be attacked at this moment of weakness would be if there was a traitor among them. Paikon agrees and then says the attacker initiated the attack just when the Guardians were weakened. His intention was not to allow the battery box to be inserted into the sealing box, because if that happened, the battery box would be fixed to the sealing box in such a way that it would be impossible to remove it before it discharged again. All evidence indicates that there was a great battle in the Celestial Fortress, and Anzen, the master of the Guardians, came very close to completing the mission, but unfortunately he was killed just before that. Hearing this, Romshi notices something and comments that the way Paikon speaks, it seems like he wasn't there at the time of the attack. Paikon says he wasn't actually. He and two other Guardians who didn't participate in the ritual were outside the fortress at the time of the attack, fulfilling other missions. They were the only surviving Guardians. Moscow says something that is incomprehensible to everyone except for his Kaioshin and his angel, and the angel translates the destroyer's speech, saying that Universe 3's God of Destruction finds it strange that they were outside the fortress at the time of the attack. Moscow thinks it's too much of a coincidence. He also asks if they already know who was the Guardian responsible for this betrayal. In response to the first question, Paikon says that he and the other two Guardians who didn't participate in the ritual being outside at the time of the attack was not a coincidence. He explains that by tradition, 4 Guardians do not participate in the ritual, meaning 4 of them retain their full power. But just before the ritual took place, coincidentally, 3 emergency missions emerged, and 3 of them had to leave the fortress. Sidra already knows how this history will end, and deduces that the 4th Guardian, who was the only one who remained in the fortress, was the traitor. Paikon confirms the suspicion of Universe 9's Hakaishin, and then also responding to Moscow's second question, says that all the gods who live in the celestial world, including the Celestial Guardians, originate from all 7 realms. He, for example, was born in the realm of Zeno. This other Guardian, on the other hand, was born in the realm of Zarat. Arak asks if Paikon is joking. How could they have allowed the Guardian most interested in freeing the Celestial Mages and Zarat to retain full power? Paikon acknowledges that this decision is a bit absurd and says that he himself wouldn't do such a thing. But he explains that Master Anzen was a man of pure heart and trusted his subordinates very much. He also says that it was a bit difficult to suspect the Guardian since he was particularly devoted to their cause and had served as a Guardian for hundreds of thousands of years. Obviously, after serving so devotedly for many years, he naturally gained the trust of Master Anzen and the other Guardians, so it probably didn't even cross Anzen's mind that the man could betray them. Now, Likir questions, asking if this man alone was able to defeat all the Guardians. He says he understands that when the Guardians recharge the battery box, they become weakened, but Universe 8's Hakaishin has difficulty believing that the weakening was that significant. Paikon understands Likir's incredulity and agrees, saying he also finds it difficult to believe that a single Guardian could defeat all the others alone, even with reduced power. Paikon says they are still investigating how exactly the traitor achieved this feat, but he says if he were to go into that kind of detail now, it would take a lot of time in the meeting, and it would also be a waste of time, since they don't have a definite answer for anything, just a hypothesis. Paikon asks the gods to allow him to give his opinion, and then suggests they skip this part, where they'll be making deductions and go straight to the part where they have the right answers. But Likir doesn't agree with that, and he makes it very clear while looking at the Master of the Guardians with a suspicious glance. He says that contrary to what Paikon is suggesting, he would like to hear more about the internal investigations of the Celestial Guardians. Apparently, Likir likes to know things in great detail, which is expected of a god who has an exemplary job like him. However, it seems that the supreme gods are not as meticulous as Likir, and one of them says that this conversation is very boring, and he doesn't want to prolong it more than necessary. The other Zeno agrees and orders them to only speak about what is important. Likir's first stands on end with fear for suggesting something that goes against the will of the supreme gods, so he immediately apologizes for his suggestion. But besides Likir, there is another person who seems a little suspicious of this whole situation, and that person is Beerus, who is in a terrible mood. Beerus says he has a relevant question to ask. Why did the mage who went to planet Earth have the appearance of Taron? And not only that, the mage seemed to have some memories about him. Beerus recalls the conversation he had with Paikon when they had left the meeting of the Hakaishans and were on the way of his planet. He remembers that Paikon had told him that Taron had died during the attack that the Guardians suffered, and asks how the Master Guardian explains this. Then Beerus makes it very clear that he never liked Paikon from the beginning, so he better give an explanation that satisfies him about why he wasn't informed about an enemy who has the memories and body of his master. And while demonstrating an even more serious and aggressive behavior, Beerus exclaims that if Paikon doesn't do it, he will make him pay. After all the confusion that happened, the gods are finally receiving a proper explanation of how things got to this point. But the more Paikon explains the situation, the more doubts and questions arise. After all, why didn't Paikon tell Beerus about the enemy using his master's body? Why are the mages using the bodies of the Guardians like Taron, Anzen, and that fat guy? Many answers are yet to be given, and we will find out all of this in the upcoming chapters of Dragon Ball Hakai. And that was chapter 27, folks, a chapter that comes to help us understand the complicated and complex situation that is happening. As you know, the plot of Dragon Ball Hakai is a bit complex and features many characters and new concepts, so I think it's good to have a more direct explanation about all of this. I'll quickly comment on some points here with you to explain some things. First, we discovered that in fact, the main responsible for sealing the Celestial Mages in the past was Paikon. He was the one who performed the technique to seal the mages, but unfortunately he had to give his life to do it. It seems to be something more or less like Mafuba, but on an extremely higher level, of course. We also found out that the big box we saw in chapter 1, the sealing box, was actually created with the power of the Super Dragon Balls. But when the gods at that time asked Super Shenron to create the sealing box, they didn't imagine that such a powerful object would be worn out due to the mage's power. So they didn't ask for a box with infinite energy. And then they were surprised when the immense power of the mages started wearing down the box's power. But after that, they couldn't ask Super Shenron to alter the box anymore because Super Shenron doesn't grant wishes for those who don't live in the realm of Zeno, that is, in the 12 universes. And he doesn't grant wishes that directly affect beings from other realms. So since the mages were already sealed inside the box, any wish to strengthen the box would be something done directly against them. And since the box became a relic of the Celestial Guardians later on, Super Shenron wouldn't strengthen it because he doesn't grant wishes for beings or things that are not part of the realm of Zeno. That's why the Guardians created the battery box, which is that small box that Anzen was carrying in chapter 1. And they themselves put their energy into that box to keep the sealing box working well. But the mystery that remains is, why doesn't Super Shenron grant wishes from beings in other realms or wishes that directly affect beings from other realms? The answer to this has not been given yet, but it will probably be at some point. But my theory is that the range of Super Shenron's power was limited simply because the realm of Zeno would have too much power over the other realms if Super Shenron had power everywhere. Think about it. If Super Shenron's power could affect other realms, Zeno or someone from the realm of Zeno could simply ask to become the Supreme Lord of all realms. Can you imagine that? So I believe that this limitation was made because of that, so that the other realms would be safe, and that decision makes perfect sense. The only exception to all of this was when the orbs were created, since Super Shenron needed to have power over beings from other realms to seal Zarat, but after Zarat was sealed, that limitation was given to the dragon. And it also makes sense that only beings from the realm of Zeno can use the Super Dragon Balls, as it could also happen that beings from other realms somehow enter the realm of Zeno and use the Super Dragon Balls to harm this realm. So to summarize this issue, Super Shenron is truly omnipotent, but his magic has, let's say, a jurisdiction, and that jurisdiction is the territory of the realm of Zeno. This limitation explains, for example, the reason why the Celestial Mages didn't use the Super Dragon Balls when they gathered them. They didn't do it because they couldn't. If the mages could use the orbs, they would simply wish for Zarat to be brought back to life, and their mission would have ended there. And after all the explanation from Paikon, it also makes sense for the resentment that the mages demonstrated towards the Super Dragon Balls when they destroyed them. In fact, they should indeed hate those relics, as they were directly responsible for Zarat's defeat, and indirectly responsible for their own defeat. Another thing that we had a little more revelation about was the so-called Celestial World, where the Celestial Guardians live. As we suspected, the Celestial World is the place where the deceased gods from all 7 realms live, and the Celestial Guardians seem to be a special group formed by the gods of this world, and they live in a place called the Celestial Fortress, which must be the place we saw in Chapter 1, and also the place we see in these meetings that the Guardians have. Apparently, when a god goes to the celestial world, they cease to belong to their original realm. That's why even though Paikon was born in Universe 7 and therefore originally belonged to the realm of Zeno, he can no longer use the Super Dragon Balls, as now, for all intents and purposes, he is no longer part of the realm of Zeno. Well, as I said before, there are still many mysteries to be answered, and surely in the next chapter we will have the continuation of this meeting, where more things will be explained. As I mentioned before, if you want the next chapters to be published more quickly, please support us on our Patreon. And remember, you can read this complete chapter, as well as all the other chapters of Dragon Ball Hakai, on our website dbhakai.com. There you can read the main story of Dragon Ball Hakai, and also the parallel stories, and that's where you'll find the chapters first. Go visit there later. And also, please help us by liking the video and subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you to everyone who watched up to this point. Until next time, goodbye.